are taught badly that the most important thing that they'll do in their life is their career, and that's simply not true. It's not true for most people, and it's certainly not true for most women.
I certainly wasn't taught that myself. I feel like I'm doing quite well in my career, but I still have pressures. People who are saying, you know, when are you actually going to succeed properly by having a baby?
Yeah.
I kind of find that slightly offensive. I'm 38. I feel like I've got through my early 30s without almost luckily, when I look at what my friends have to deal with their children. I almost feel a little bit blessed. What do you say to that?
Well, I would say that it starts to get pretty lonesome in life after 45 if you don't have a family.
What's going on, guys? This is Eddie, the African Red Pew. Welcome to the video. Today's video is about Thomas Sowell. He discusses how the left have been trying to destroy marriage for some time now. And you've been part of it. You've been affected. It's just that you don't know about it. And Dr. Jordan Peterson features. Let's get into it.
The latest in a long line of New York Times editorials disguised as news stories was a recent article suggesting that most American women today do not have husbands. Partly this was based on census data, but much more so on creative definitions. The Times defined women to include females as young as 16 and counted widows, who of course could not be widows unless they had once had a husband. Wives whose husbands were away in the military or in prison were also counted among women not living with a husband. With such creative definitions, it turned out that 51% of women were not living with a husband. That made it most women and created a news story suggesting that these women were not married. In reality, only 1/4 of women have never married, even when you count girls as young as 16. While the data quoted in the New York Times story were about women who were not living with a husband, there were quotes in the story about women who rejected marriage. What was the point? To show that marriage is a thing of the past. As a headline in the San Francisco Chronicle put it, "Women see less need for old ball and chain." In other words, marriage is like a prison sentence, complete with the old-fashioned leg irons with a chain connected to a heavy metal ball so that the prisoner cannot escape. This picture of marriage and a family as a burden is not peculiar to the New York Times or the San Francisco Chronicle. It is common among the intelligentsia of the left. Negative depictions of marriage and family are common not only in our newspapers, but also wherever the left is concentrated, whether in our schools and colleges, or on television or in the movies. Most famously in the Murphy Brown TV program that Vice President Dan Quayle criticized, provoking a fierce counterattack from the left. The New York Times was not the first outlet of the left to play fast and loose with statistics in order to depict marriage as a relic of the past. Innumerable sources have quoted a statistic that half of all marriages end in divorce, another conclusion based on creative manipulation of words rather than on hard facts. The fact that there may be half as many divorces in a given year as there are marriages in that year does not mean that half of all marriages end in divorce. It is completely misleading to compare all the divorces in one year, from marriages begun years and even decades earlier, with the number of marriages begun in that one year. Why these desperate twistings of words and numbers by the left in order to discredit marriage? Partly, it is because marriage is a fundamental component of a social order that the left opposes. Moreover, marriage is seen as one of the social restrictions on individual free choice. These are not new ideas, even though they may be more pervasive than in the past, simply because the intelligentsia is larger and more vocal today. As far back as the 18th century, Rousseau said that man is born free, but is everywhere in chains. In other words, the social restrictions essential to a civilized society were seen as unnecessary hindrances to each individual's freedom. It never seems to occur to those who think this way that if everyone were free of all social restrictions, only the strongest and most ruthless would in fact be free, and all the others would be subject to their dictates or destruction. Marriage and family are also barriers to the left's desire to create a society built to their own specifications. Friedrich Engels' first draft of the Communist Manifesto proclaimed the end of families. but Karl Marx thought better of it and took that out. In one way or another, however, the left has for more than 2 centuries tried to undermine families, including today redefining the words marriage and family to include whatever kind of people want to live together in whatever way, for whatever reason. If marriage can mean anything, then it means nothing. The New York Times' long-standing motto, "All the news that's fit to print," should be changed to reflect today's reality. Manufacturing news to fit an ideology.
Marriage is a perfect thing. Marriage is a great thing. Marriage is beautiful. But that type of marriage I described is dead. How is it dead? Check out the family law system. Check out the court system. In this modern day, marriage has been built so negatively such that it discourages men not to go for marriage, because the court is against the man, of which the man is the head of a household in a marriage. But the way the law has been laid out, it has been laid out in such a way such that a man enters in a contract which doesn't favor him. When the wife divorces him, even if she's the one who's in the wrong, she gets most of the things, half or more than what he worked for. Like Thomas Sowell described, the left got this plan where they want society to be in their outline or in their image, such that they've started allowing despicable things like men becoming women and vice versa. People who would be in mental asylum back in the day are voters. They are allowing kids to change their genders as well, which is despicable, which is an abomination. You don't have to be religious to condemn most of these immoral things the left stands on. And by the left, yes, I mean the left-wing politics, of which is usually in the Western world. But those politics affect the rest of the world, because most people in underdeveloped countries all envy to be like the way it is in the West. Movies they watch, they come from the West. The music they listen to, it comes from the West. The clothes they wear, it comes from the West. Even the culture they're trying to copy, it all comes from the West. So it all comes from the West, and then most of it is influenced by left-wing politics. So the left wing is actually the problem here. They've been infiltrated by people with selfish ideologies, just like Thomas Sowell described in this video. Look at how they've feminized young men. Look at this movement, which should be described as a terrorist movement, the feminism movement. Look at how influential it is, and it only caters to women, of which they preach equality, but feminism preaches superiority for women and inferiority for men. A man is not allowed to talk about deficiencies of women, but a woman is allowed to talk about deficiencies of a man. If a man just talks about, just like I'm talking in this video, if my videos were to blow up, I would be labeled all sorts of things. Misogynist, terrorist, incel, whatever crap they come up with. Those trigger words which are conversation killers. Instead of arguing on the topic, they attack you as a person, they attack your character. I don't mean attacks. That's the left wing ideologies at its best. They don't argue logically, they argue emotionally. I don't know what their real agenda about destroying the world. I might have my own theories, but without facts, I might be labeled as a conspiracy theorist. But anyways, with time we'll discover their real agenda for destroying the world. Of which they've destroyed the family system, they've destroyed the community. Sick people are walking around the street trying to normalize every despicable thing, criminal kids. Some people even low-key pushing to normalize pedophilia. There's nothing wrong in the left wing's book of ideology. Let's check out what Jordan Peterson has to say about women, this thing of avoiding marriage and prioritizing their careers. Let's check it out and then we'll wrap up this video.
Most young women are taught badly that the most important thing that they'll do in their life is their career, and that's simply not true. It's not true for most people, and it's certainly not true for most women.
I certainly wasn't taught that myself. I feel like I'm doing quite well in my career, but I still have pressures. People who are saying, you know, when are you actually going to succeed properly by having a baby?
Yeah.
I kind of find that slightly offensive. I'm 38. I feel like I've got through my early 30s without almost luckily, when I look at what my friends have to deal with their children. I almost feel a little bit blessed. What do you say to that?
Well, I would say that it starts to get pretty lonesome in life after 45 if you don't have a family, you know, and so it's easy to consider the utility of an intense career, and like you have a very high quality career too, you know, that's something that marks you out from let's say more typical people, and perhaps that's worth more of a sacrifice. But you know, you're going to live till you're 90 in all likelihood, and it's not easy to consider your life across its entire span. And there's something to be said for developing a very close-knit, intimate community around you if you can manage it. You have children, and then you have grandchildren, and that, to me, what I've experienced in my life, although I've had a very productive career and a very interesting career, it's definitely been the case for me that my family has been more and more important to me as I've got older, and I don't think that that's a uncommon experience.
I see a lot of young women when they're in their best years saying that they don't want to have kids, they don't want marriage. And then I've seen other women who are the same mindset when they were young, but when it's too late, they're craving for things they were saying they didn't want. Women, listen, as a woman, in most cases, you operate on emotions. And it's all about how you're feeling today. You don't really worry about how you feel tomorrow. If you could use logic, statements like you don't want to be married or to have kids when you're 20 wouldn't be in your vocabulary, because you don't know how you'll be feeling in 10 years, and that's usually the case. But by the time you're in your 30s, you'd have been undesirable to a lot of men out there. The men you want won't want you. They want a younger version of you, which means you end up being miserable, or you end up settling for somebody you don't like. Or just like Jordan Peterson said, do you want to be single without kids at 90? Wow, what a best with that. This is where I'm going to end my video. Hit like, comment, subscribe if you haven't. I'll see you in the next video. Peace.